Hello, thank you very much for joining me today in this live recording on understanding your Ayurvedic body type. I'm going to talk about the importance of understanding this Ayurvedic body type or dosha, and how important it is in treating yourself and why it's really the first thing you need to know, even if you're not an Ayurvedic doctor or a practitioner. It's really essential to know your own type. It's kind of like if you're going to work on a car, I mean, you have to know, are you dealing with a Toyota, a Mercedes Benz, or a Priya? There's all types of cars and there's all types of people, and different makes and different models have different engines. And it's the same with people. We're going to explain that, and we're going to explain what makes these differences, what classifies these, Vata, Pitta, Kapha, Vata, Pitta, Kapha, what divides them up, and the different combinations that you have: a Vata, Pitta type, Vata, Kapha type, Kapha, Pitta, Kapha, Vata, Pitta, Vata, Pitta, Kapha, and tridoshic and dominant Vata, dominant Pitta, dominant Kapha. We're going to explain how there's combinations, and then also how there's really just not one body type. There's really two. One, your Prakriti, what you were born with, and two, your Vikriti, what you are now, which we also can refer to as your imbalance, and how you can have different parts of your body and different health conditions can have different imbalances than yourself. So first, why it's so important, because like I said, you have to know. If you're a mechanic, you want to know, or is this a Mercedes? If you're going to open up the engine of a car, and you're good at fixing Mercedes engines, and the problems with this type of Mercedes, then you're already ahead of the game because you know that make and model. And that's how an Ayurvedic doctor looks at patients. First classifies them right away, just really instantly. It's really the first step of classification, is looking at what's called the Prakriti, the original body type. This is what you are when you were born. It's called the Prakriti. Now, you can change. There's a second type. It's called the Vikriti. Vikriti is like the imbalance. And really that is seen first, the imbalance, when you just first look at people. And a lot of times people get these mixed up. Let me give you an example. Say you were a thin person your whole life. You were always thin and light and bony and cold, and your whole life you were like this. So that's obviously a Vata dominant person, because every person has all three types, Vata, Pitta, Kapha. You just have some that are more dominant, and of course this can change during your life too, and it also can change during the seasons. So everything is affecting your body type, we'll call it, or a Vikriti, or what your imbalance. So say you were this type of Vata dominant person, just to make it simple, but then you you ate junk food for 10 years, and you got a computer job, you didn't exercise, and now you're basically obese. Well, are you still Vata? Yeah, you're still Vata. Your Prakriti, your original type, which is called Prakriti, doesn't change. You're still Vata, but you have what's called a Kapha imbalance. Kapha is heavy, dense, slow. And, we associate with being a round, full person who's generally at least easy to be overweight, definitely not thin. So you've become kind of this Kapha, but you're still Vata on the inside. You could still have many traits of being a Vata inside, like Vata's overthinking, maybe worrying, not sleeping well. All those could still be there. But now you have this big body. But you're still Vata, but you have a Kapha imbalance. That imbalance is called your Vikriti. And this is the big mistake that people make. They think, well, I'm big, heavy, and overweight, I must be Kapha. No. You have a Kapha imbalance, and technically that would only be in part of your body. It would be your fat tissue, for example, is Kapha. You have too much fat. But the mind is worried, overthinking, panicking, can't sleep. That's still Vata, hasn't changed. You could have other parts of you. You could still get gas, bloating, constipation easily, which is Vata. You just happen to now have a kind of a kapha imbalance. So if I were going to treat you, I would have to pick a diet that's most suitable for you. And when you were thin and skinny and young, of course, I would give you the Vata balancing diet so you don't become too thin. But now that you're obese, now I'd probably give you a Kapha Vata diet. The Kapha would be first because this is our big issue now, is this giant imbalance of you being 150 pounds overweight, but you're still Vata, so we would modify the diet would still accommodate your Vata-ness, your inability to digest certain foods like raw vegetables, easy to get constipated, having dry skin. A lot of these Vata characteristics would still be there, even though you're obese. Now, this type of person probably can lose weight pretty fast because they're not really a Kapha person. They just sat around and ate junk food for a year. So once they get off the junk food, start moving, they start losing the weight quite quickly. So maybe in a year or two, they've lost a whole bunch of weight and they can get off that diet. But maybe we put them on then we maybe put you on like a Vata Kapha diet, because the Vata would go first because now you're not that overweight, but maybe still a little overweight, or we don't want the weight to come back. So we put the Kapha second. And it could go the other way too. You could be a big heavy person your whole life. Then you could have serious health condition like hepatitis, and you could be in bed for 6 months, can hardly eat, and you become thin and weak and depleted and bony. Well, you can't follow a Kapha diet anymore, because a Kapha pacifying diet is going to lead to more weight loss, and you're already skinny and weak from this illness, or crazy fasting for is what happens sometimes. So then you would follow maybe a Vata Kapha diet, because the Vata is going to be the building diet that's going to put the weight back on you. And again, you could have different parts of your body. Say you had inflammation in the colon. Maybe you're a Vata, or you're a Kapha, or you're a Kapha Vata, Vata Kapha. These two we've given examples. But then suddenly you get this inflammation in your body, and you got this loose stools, and you've got diarrhea, and you got hemorrhoids, and it's bleeding, and it's painful. Bleeding is a Pitta. And you've got burning sensation, that's Pitta. Then maybe you go into menopause and you're getting hot and you're sweaty, that's Pitta. So now, even though you were born Vata or Kapha, now you have this Pitta imbalance. Maybe you have Pitta, we could say, in the colon, because it's all inflamed and it's bleeding. And so we can't give you Kapha balancing diet. Well, Kapha balancing diet is going to have a lot of hot spices, and that's going to make your colon worse. So you could be a Kapha person and then have a Pitta health problem. So the first thing is to see what you usually see, or if you took a test online, you're really not diagnosing your original body type. You're diagnosing what you are now, your Vikriti. So there really is no body type. We'll just use that because it's easy for people to understand. But there's really two. We'll repeat. Your Prakriti, what you were born as, and your Vikriti, what you are now. Now, of course, the healthy person, it should be the same. If you were born Pitta Vata, like myself, and you're still pretty much Pitta Vata, then that's better. There's not a big imbalance. You always will have, every dosha, Vata, Pitta, Kapha, there's not one that's better than the other. Each one has strengths, each one has weaknesses. And so if you're Pitta like me, we always have to be careful to not aggravate our Pitta, because we're dominant Pitta. So we'll always be following a Pitta pacifying diet. Unless, like the two scenarios we said, we gained 100 pounds, or we lost 50 pounds, where we have some extreme where we may have to adjust. But those would be imbalances. I hope you got it. So that's why you have to know this about yourself before you start any diet. It's the first thing you have to know. So when I see a new patient, first I see the Kapha, I'll see the Vata, I'll see the Pitta. They may have Pitta in the colon if they're diarrhea, or if they got dry hard stools, they got Vata in the colon. If they're very overweight, there's some Kapha. if they've thinking too much and panicking and having a lot of anxiety. They could have Vata in the head, and they could have Kapha in the muscles because they've been lifting weights. And then they could have Pitta in the colon from the diarrhea. So you could have all three could be imbalanced. That, of course, makes it a little tricky. So then if you do an appointment, you would see, oh, I'm giving you one diet, maybe a Kapha Vata diet, but I'm giving you Pitta herbs for this problem in the colon. And sometimes I'll be giving some Vata herbs, some Pitta herb, balancing herbs, and some Kapha herbs, based on which part I want to treat. If you're overthinking and you're Vata in the head, then maybe you're going to get some relaxing herbs, some calming herbs to deal with this overactive Vata mind. And if you're overweight, maybe I'm giving you some, after each meal, I'm giving you some Kapha herbs. Then if you're having this diarrhea and pain, bleeding like ulcerative colitis or IBS, then at night, I'm giving you some Pitta herbs to treat this inflammation in your colon. I want to explain it that way because just because you think, oh, I'm Vata, I'm Pitta, I'm Kapha, doesn't necessarily mean you should be following a Vata, Pitta, or Kapha diet, because you could have a Pitta imbalance somewhere, a Vata imbalance somewhere, or a Kapha imbalance. And you're usually, when you do these tests, you're just looking at what you are now. And really, to treat somebody, you have to know what they are now, the current state, Vikriti, but you also have to know what their Prakriti is. That's why in an appointment, I always ask, but when you were young, you were thin, right? Yes. When you were young, you were very athletic and strong and aggressive. Yes. When you were young, you were kind of overweight. Yeah. See, I'm checking on the Prakriti. Now, of course, if you see somebody in person and you know how to do it, you can feel the Prakriti and the Vikriti just from the pulse. But you can get it from seeing and asking questions and observation as well. There's different ways to come to this conclusion, but the fastest is the pulse. But now that most of my patients are on Zoom, I rely a lot more on just looking at the face, looking at the eyes, looking at the tongue. You could have a tongue doesn't change. Certain things don't change. You could have a person who's very overweight, but they still have the sharp pointed red tongue. So I can see the Pitta, or they have a red hot face. I can see the Pitta, even though they're big and overweight. They think they're Kapha, but I'm seeing the Pitta. They're red, they're hot, they're burning, they have diarrhea, so that's a lot of Pitta problems. So it may be even more important than the weight to balance one dosha before another dosha. So what makes us different? Well, there's many factors. There's what we call gunas, or 20 characteristics, like hot, cold, dry, oily, thin, heavy, active, slow. And these are some of these qualities that we look at to diagnose a person. Some people are very warm, and warm, they're warm. They're not, they like cold air, cold breeze. Well, other people are very cold and they have cold hands and cold feet. That's very important. That will dictate your diet right there. If you're hot, like me, you can't be doing chili peppers. Even if you're having hot flashes, sweating at night, you can't be doing chili peppers. Even ginger. I don't even eat too much ginger. It's hot, particularly in the summer. It's hot outside. I'm hot. The last thing I need is ginger. And then if you're a cold person, the last thing you need is cooling things, cucumbers, coconut water and things like that, particularly in the winter where it's cold outside. So just this hot and cold enough is enough that the diet has to change based on that. Just like light or heavy. If you're thin, you're going to get a certain diet. If you're heavy, you're going to get a different diet. If your skin's dry, your lips are dry, your colon's dry, well, then you're going to not have dry foods. But other people are oily. They have oily skin, pimples. And so they're going to get more dry and water retention. So they're not oily. They're actually holding water and have oily skin. So that's going to affect the diet. These are just a few examples. And then some people are like very active, overthinking. Well, it's very Vata. And so they can't have things that stimulating them and making themselves more active, like coffee. It's just going to aggravate that imbalance of overthinking and worrying and not sleeping. But if you're a heavy, slow, sluggish person, having trouble getting out of bed, you sleep like a rock, then coffee could be like medicine for you. So this is one of the main points here, is that all the diets that you see online are, let's just say, fads, or not suitable for everybody. It's impossible. All these, you should be vegan. Oh, no. That's for the heavy, overweight Kapha who's trying to lose weight. He does very good on a low animal protein diet. Then other people are like the other extreme. Oh, let's do carnivore or keto. Well, if you're already a heavy, dense person, particularly if you've got fatty liver and tumors, and you're just going to eat more meat, you're just going to make the whole condition worse. So, anybody promoting one diet has never been in practice. Because once you're in private practice, you start realizing real quickly people are very different. Even people who aren't familiar with Ayurveda, if they're even nutritionists, they will start realizing you just can't tell everybody to eat the same thing because you believe the Mediterranean diet is the cure-all, or there's people out there thinking everybody should be doing no carbs and keto, or other people think should do no dairy, no wheat. These are all, let's just say, amateur approaches to healthcare. Ayurveda is a system. You diagnose yourself or the patient. You look at what their Prakriti is, their original type. You look at what they are now. You look at different systems and organs in the body to see if there's doshic imbalances that are different than the Vikriti. A lot of times it matches. The person who's Vata has all the Vata problems. The person who's Pitta has all the Pitta imbalances, and the person who's Kapha has a lot of Kapha imbalances. But very few people are just Vata, Pitta, or Kapha. Most people are combinations, like me, Pitta, Vata. Or if you're heavy and hot, then you're like Kapha, Pitta. If you're thin, you're kind of nervous, and we're thin when you're young, but still fairly full-bodied and full size, definitely not skinny. You could be Vata, Kapha. And if you're really heavy and hot, like I said, you could be Kapha, Pitta. So everybody is very different, which means everybody needs a different diet. And then, of course, you have different factors. Early in life, you're more Kapha. Then in your active, aggressive age of reproduction, you're very Pitta. And then in old age, you become more Vata, thin and weak and frail. And then, of course, the seasons. The summer is hot, so you may have to balance that heat by not having a Pitta increasing foods during the summer. And then the winter, of course, is cold, so you don't want to have too many cold foods. You want to have the opposite. So these are all factors that need to be taken in consideration. The imbalances on the person, the season, and the time in their life. These are all taken into consideration. And then the health condition itself can be Vata, Pitta, or Kapha. An easy example is just high blood pressure. If you're Vata type of high blood pressure, you get nervous, and it goes up and down, just like Vata. Pitta, you can push yourself, get angry, and the blood pressure can be very high and can even lead to strokes, but and goes extremely high. And then Kapha, high blood pressure, doesn't really go up and down much. It just stays up and stays there. It's very steady, just like Kapha. And it's usually due to blockages or restrictions or due to the weight. So there's a health condition. I gave an example of weight, high blood pressure. And then there's versions or types of high blood pressure based on Vata, Pitta, Kapha. And in diabetes, there's 22 types of diabetes in Ayurveda, and some of them are Vata type, some of them are Kapha type, some of them are Pitta type, and some of them are combinations. You can see even like IBS. If you've got a lot of diarrhea and loose stool, that's Pitta type of IBS. If you've got loose stool and constipation alternating, that's a Kapha type of IBS. So the herbs are completely different. The diet's completely different. And this is what throws everybody off, because internet still hasn't figured this out. they're still like, this is the IBS diet. Well, what happens is you got one person who learned how to treat themselves for something, say ulcerative colitis or diabetes. And so now they think they're going to tell everybody how they did it. And they don't realize there's different variations of that health condition, and there's different variations of people, but they don't realize that. They just think everybody's the same. And they say everybody should eat this because this is what I ate to get rid of my health condition. And then they'll even write a book on it. They'll even take a website on it. And, then they tell everybody, this is how you treat this condition. But it's only based on their limited experience. So that's all these people online who are promoting a cure based on their own personal experience. It may or may not work for you because you may not be the same as them. More than likely, you're not the same as them. So, and your condition may not be the same. You may not be the same. So that's why understanding this is very important. And it doesn't really have to be very complicated. You can study on your own what is the qualities of Vata, cold, light, dry, active, rough. The qualities of Pitta, slightly oily and warm and active. And the qualities of Kapha, slow, heavy, dense, for example. And once you understand these, you can look at your health issue, you can look at yourself, and you can start to see where these imbalances of Vata, Pitta, Kapha are. And you could really say that Vata, Pitta, Kapha are energetics. It's what's making the human being to grow. A good example is the plants. I also do a lot of gardening. And just to grow plants, you also will help you a lot to look at Vata, Pitta, Kapha. What is Pitta? Pitta is the sun. You have too much sun, it destroys the plant. You have too much Pitta in your body, it destroys your tissue, it destroys your muscles, it destroys your colon. It's too much Pitta, too hot. And so you can't, chili pepper has that power. And then what's Kapha? Kapha is the minerals coming from the earth and the water. You have too much water, you're going to be, the plant will die. And if you have too much water, you'll be all swollen up and heavy. And if you don't have enough water, you dry out and die. And if the plant doesn't have enough water and minerals, it will dry out and die. And then what is Vata? Vata is air and the space for the plant to move. The plant needs space to grow. If it doesn't have enough space to grow, it's not going to grow. And for us, it's also the oxygen, the air. We need it. So everybody, the plant and humans, we all need these Vata, Pitta, Kapha in the right proportion. And plants are very different too. Some plants need more sun, some plants need more water, some plants need less water. It's the same for human beings. We're all a big variety of human beings. So some of us can need a lot of water, some of us can do spicy food, some of us can't do spicy foods. Some of us can do heavy foods. Some of us can't do heavy foods. So, we're all very different and we're changing throughout our life. And the weather's also affecting us. And our health conditions can also be issues. So, well, I hope that helped you understand. I hope I didn't make it more confusing for you. But I do want you to realize it's more than just saying, oh, my body type is, or my dosha is Vata. My dosha is Pitta. Even when you say that, you really should say my dominant dosha is Pitta. In my case, for example, that's dominant. Even though I'm technically Pitta Vata, I'm clearly dominant Pitta. So I could say I'm dominant Pitta person. You could say I'm dominant Kapha person. I'm dominant Vata person. But that doesn't mean that's the diet you're going to follow. Doesn't mean your health condition is going to be Pitta. Doesn't mean that you don't have Kapha problems or Vata problems. It just means that's your dominant dosha. And it's the easiest one to become imbalanced because you already have this one as in a dominant state. But the other ones could become imbalanced too. Even you are a Pitta person like myself, And I have a lot of Vata clients, one after another, and they're talking, and they're nervous and scattered and jumping around in the appointments. After 2 or 3 of them in a row, I become more Vata. I'm influenced by the other people around me. I'm influenced by the music. It can be very active, and that's Vata. It could be very slow. That's Kapha. It could be very intense. That's Pitta. So even the music, the people, the environment, all are affecting my dosha. In my case, Pitta. So everything you can use to balance your dosha. What you want is to be balanced. Very few people are tridoshic, where Vata, Pitta, Kapha are just perfect. There's always one's a little high, one's a little low, and to balance one, usually we're bringing up the other. It's all really about balance at the end of the day. I'll always be Pitta, but I need to keep my Pitta in balance. And if you're always Kapha, you're still going to be Kapha. If you're Kapha dominant, but you're going to have to be more careful about keeping that dosha in balance your whole life. And then you have to be very careful. You can't just be following some guy on social media who's telling you to eat this and eat this diet, and this is the only way to go, and no carbs are all bad, and and don't have any dairy, and dairy is all bad, and wheat's all bad. Well, that may be for him or her. It may have nothing to do with you. And if you follow the wrong diet, then you're going to create these imbalances in yourself. So you're a Vata person, you're thin, you're light, you're dry, you're active, and you start following some vegan diet online, no animal protein, maybe that's more extreme, no wheat, no dairy, no eggs. And next thing you know, you're losing weight and you're becoming more Vata. So all these qualities that you already had, being light, dry, cold, very active, are all worse. Now you're more light, you're more dry, you're more cold, and you're more active, and you're having more anxiety, all from the diet. Because the person who maybe is promoting the diet was a big, heavy Kapha person who lost weight, so now he thinks everybody should follow this diet. But that's incorrect. So all diets you watch online, all frauds. You really have to listen to your body. Your body will actually tell you if you listen to your body. It's just that we listen to social media instead of our body. But children, they know. You can ask a young child before he gets too much on the internet, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, what fruit do you like? What vegetables do you like? What grains do you like? And he will basically tell you the correct ones that are the most suitable for him, because he's not confused yet. He hasn't read the internet and read things like all carbs are bad, all dairy is bad, all dairy is inflammatory, nobody can eat wheat. He hasn't read all this stuff, so he's not confused. All he knows is, hey, I like bread. Oh yeah, I love butter. Oh no, I don't like tomatoes. So even if I hear what a person likes and dislikes, even without seeing them, as long as they're not thinking too much and they're just going by their body, then I can already diagnose them. Even by what foods they like, what foods bother them, what foods give them gas or bloating or constipation. Just from that, if the person's not thinking too much, that's the problem. The person's thinking, oh, I thought dairy is bad. I thought wheat's bad. I thought this is bad. I thought we should just have protein. I thought I needed more protein. So these are the thoughts. These are the problem. It's the thoughts. If they just, sometimes I got to get people out of their thoughts and say, well, how do you feel when you have raw kale? Oh, yeah, it's bloated. So that's your body telling you you can't digest it. It's not suitable for you. So if you listen and tune into your body enough, you can come to the same conclusion. And people do. Elderly people who don't know anything about doshas, body types, or Ayurveda, they often come to the conclusion, particularly the wise old woman there. She says, well, I learned a long time ago salads don't work for me. I learned a long time ago that I need to have animal protein every day. I learned a long time ago I can't eat too much meat. I learned a long time ago I can't do sour foods. I learned slowly over time, tomatoes don't work for me. So you can learn through trial and error if you tune into your body and don't get too confused on the internet. And you can actually come to almost the correct conclusion, because many elderly people, I told them, you better eat this, don't eat this, better eat this. And they go, boy, I wish somebody would have told me that 40 years ago, because sometimes elderly people, they figured it out, but it took them 40 years of trial and error. So that's the beauty about knowing your own body type or Prakriti, is that you don't have to think anymore about your diet. You know what foods are going to be suitable for you, and you don't have to listen to people anymore about what to eat. Now, when you want to treat a health condition, you probably need a practitioner, but even there, you can't just go buy some herbs for high blood pressure. Is this blood pressure formula or tea going to treat Pitta high blood pressure, Vata high blood pressure, or Kapha high blood pressure? So even people selling, this is for blood sugar, this is for blood pressure, this is, that's still not accurate information. Now, not to say that it won't benefit the person, but this is why we can see naturopaths, their success rate is much lower than Ayurvedic doctors, because they're kind of giving more canned treatments and not so individualized. So they have a certain level of success and a certain value in their treatments. But Ayurveda doctor, he's got a much higher success rate and very few mistakes. And he doesn't create new health problems. There's many naturopaths and they say everybody should have cayenne pepper. Well, that cayenne pepper is some type of cure-all, for example. But if I have cayenne pepper, I'm going to get hot, burning, and acidity, and even could get a stomach ulcer. So, so maybe for a lot of people, the cayenne pepper works great, a certain percentage, like the Kapha type. So at least 30% of the population telling everybody to have Kapha, cayenne pepper will work. And for Pittas, it's going to create more health problems. So, and Vatas, maybe a little bit of health problems. It depends. So that's why you have to be very careful, even taking herbs, because you may not know how that's going to affect your dosha. You may not know whether that's suitable for you. Like I can treat the same condition using different herbs. If I have a person, for example, with a tumor and their Pitta, I may give certain herbs. If I have another person with a tumor and their Vata, I may give different herbs to do the same job, because I don't want to create new problems, secondary problems. And that's the accuracy and sophistication of Ayurveda. And it's all based on the energetics of Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. So before you start treating yourself or following a diet, somehow through an Ayurvedic doctor or even your own online study, determine what is your dominant dosha, Vata, Pitta, or Kapha, and then determine what's your second dominant dosha, Vata, Pitta, or Kapha. Then go look up that diet. Like in my case, I follow the Pitta Vata diet. In the summertime, I follow more of a Pitta diet. In the wintertime, I follow more of a Vata Pitta diet. So once you know that, then you know what you should be eating, what you shouldn't eat, and it will even you'll even know what herbs you could take and what herbs you shouldn't take. It will make life much easier in treating yourself by understanding this basic knowledge, which still, even though it's ancient knowledge, people haven't figured it out yet. So I'm hoping sharing this with you is enlightening for you and opens up your understanding of the individuality of each person and how you have to know who you are before you treat yourself, and to be careful about allowing other people to give you advice without diagnosing or knowing you. Okay? I hope this helped you. I hope this helps you understand your own body better, listen to your own body better, ultimately understand what your own Prakriti and Vikriti is, so you can follow it and not have to go through years and years of trial and error, figuring out what foods are best for you and what works for you, which unfortunately is what most people do. There's a lot of trial and error going on, but Ayurveda doctor or a professional, you can't be doing trial and error with the patients. You have to be precise. You have to get the diet right, and you have to give the herbs that are not going to create new health imbalances. All right? I wish you all the best. of health and happiness. And I sincerely hope this information helped you in improving your own health and understanding better about Ayurveda and how beautiful and sophisticated it is in diagnosing yourself and your health issues. God bless you all.